Hi, I'm Alexa. I was married to Peter for 8 years, but we got divorced a year ago. He confessed to having an affair with his ex-girlfriend from college for about 3 years. I never saw it coming, especially since we had a 4-year-old daughter. It was unbelievable, but it was true. We ended up getting divorced, and I decided to raise our daughter on my own. Peter married his ex-girlfriend, Mandy, a few months after our divorce was finalized. I found out about his wedding from his friends, as we didn't keep in touch after the divorce. I got full custody of our daughter, and Peter only visited her on weekends under my supervision. After his wedding, he stopped visiting altogether. I was fine with it because it meant no more awkward silences while he played with our daughter, and I tried not to kick him out. He had visited a few weekends while we were getting divorced, and I let him because our daughter enjoyed being with him. But once he stopped, I didn't bother reaching out again. It's been close to a year since our divorce was finalized, and I haven't seen him in about 8 months. Since then, I've been focusing on work and raising my daughter. That's all there is to do for me. But last weekend, Peter showed up at my door without warning. It was an intense interaction. When I opened the door, I thought he was there to see our daughter, but he wanted to talk to me. I found it strange because we hadn't had anything to talk about for almost a year. Still, I let him continue. He told me Mandy was planning on pressing charges against me if I didn't give them full custody of our daughter soon. She believed I couldn't provide for our daughter as well as they could, and that I was depriving her of a comfortable childhood. Peter demanded I hand over our daughter right away and assured me they would complete the legal procedure soon. According to Mandy, I was incapable of raising her on my own. I flew off the handle and slammed the door shut in his face, telling him to get lost unless he wanted me to call the cops. I couldn't believe he thought he could demand our daughter after ignoring us for almost a year. I wasn't fazed by Mandy's threats because they were baseless. She couldn't press charges against me for neglect just because I was a single mother. But I was scared of Peter returning and reminding my daughter of his existence. It had been hard enough to get her to forget about him without telling her the truth. I also didn't like the idea of Peter having any access to me. His demands were creepy, and it was concerning that he didn't see anything wrong with what he was suggesting. So I decided to move in with my parents for a while until I felt safe enough to live on my own. It was convenient because my nanny could take a break. 2 days after Peter's reappearance, I moved in with my parents and have been living with them since. I didn't hear from Peter until 2 weeks ago when he showed up at my parents' place. He knew this was the only other place I was likely to be. But now, with my mom and dad with me, I felt more confident and ready to fight. My daughter was asleep, being looked after by my mother, so I was free to say whatever I wanted. Peter looked upset and told me they couldn't press charges, but he still thought it was unfair that I had taken full custody forcefully. He admitted the real reason for his return was that he and Mandy felt the void of our daughter's absence. Even though Mandy wasn't her biological mom, she had met our daughter several times while Peter and I were still together. Whenever Peter took our daughter out, they would meet Mandy. They began to think of themselves as parents, and Mandy believed she could have been a good stepmom if given the chance. Peter said it was unfair of me to file for full custody just because he cheated. Knowing it was unlikely he'd get joint custody since our daughter was still young, and he'd been cheating for 3 years, Peter didn't stand a chance. One major reason he didn't get full custody was his demanding job, which required long hours and frequent travel, leaving him little time for our daughter. I barely knew Mandy, so she wasn't even considered for custody, despite her relationship with Peter. His lawyer could only secure visitation rights for him, but I don't see how that was my fault. Peter messed up his chances by cheating, which played a huge role in the custody battle. After the divorce was finalized, he pretty much gave up and let me have full custody. So, I honestly don't understand why he's blaming me. Peter told me he wanted to reconnect with our daughter, and so did Mandy, which is why they were asking for another chance. He tried to persuade me, saying it would be beneficial for our daughter in the long run and that I'd regret not letting them bond now. He even said our daughter would demand answers in the future about why she wasn't allowed to be part of her father's life. To avoid future blame, Peter wanted me to let them build a relationship with our daughter. Despite his infidelity, he insisted he'd always been a good father and Mandy was desperate to see her one more time. I didn't know what to say at the time, but I knew I didn't feel comfortable letting them be around my daughter. I had zero trust or faith in them on a personal level. My husband had betrayed me and lied to me for 3 whole years, and I hadn't let go of that yet. Mandy had been with him all along, so for them to ask to be a part of my daughter's life seemed ridiculous. I didn't know if I did the right thing, but I told Peter it was too late to change the past. He needed to accept that our daughter wasn't his anymore because he'd been absent for the last 8 months of her life. It had been really difficult to explain his absence to her, and I wasn't about to do it all over again just because he and his wife wanted to be with her now. I told him to go away again and shut the door. He did leave at the time, but since then he's been texting me nonstop, trying to persuade me to let them have a shot. He keeps insisting that our daughter needs him as much as she needs me, and that I'll regret my decision when she resents me in the future. It's gotten to the point where I genuinely don't know if I'm doing the right thing by keeping them apart. Am I the asshole for not letting my ex-husband be a part of our daughter's life after he cheated on me and cut us off for 8 months? Update. I decided against letting him back into our lives. I was crazy to even consider it, probably because I was emotional after seeing him after a long time. But it's not going to happen. I spoke to my parents about how I was feeling, and they were firmly against even speaking to him again because he's a horrible person. My ex completely ruined any chance I had at happiness in future relationships. He lied and cheated for 3 years despite us being in a relatively happy marriage. It probably wasn't happy enough for him, I suppose. It's been 2 days since I posted, and most comments advised me to never let him into my life again and to get a restraining order. I think that's what I'll do if he shows up again because he doesn't give up easily. I've contacted my lawyer and am trying to terminate any parental rights he has. He obviously doesn't deserve to be a dad. A father who can abandon his child for months without explanation and then come back when it suits him can't be trusted. I know this better than anyone. I don't even know what he was up to during those 8 months he didn't visit us. It's strange he thinks I'll welcome him back now that he's ready to bond with his daughter. Tough luck, buddy, but that's not how my world works. I've blocked him everywhere. The last couple of texts he sent tried to make me feel sympathy towards him, which rubbed me the wrong way. He phrased them like I'm the villain and he's the long-suffering victim separated from his daughter because of my cruelty, as if he never cheated and then disappeared on me. I can't believe I let myself get carried away by his sudden reappearance. I'm not coping with this as well as I thought. I really can't afford to fall weak again. I'm taking the advice that most people here have given me and looking into therapists. I think that'll be a good way to move forward and put this episode behind me. It'll take up my time, but at least something productive will come out of it, and maybe I'll stop overanalyzing and overthinking. Update. It's been 3 days since my last update. Today, Peter sent me an email about why he came back after so long. It's messed up even by his standards. I don't know what kind of weird stuff he and Mandy are up to, but I'm glad I already spoke to my lawyer. We're ahead of him because some things he said were concerning. In the email, he told me that after the divorce was finalized, Mandy told him she didn't want him to be in touch with me anymore. So he gave up custody of his daughter and decided to focus on his married life. They broke up years back in college because she was too family-oriented and he wanted someone with ambitions other than getting married and having kids. But they both changed over time. They reconciled a couple of years ago at a reunion, realized they'd messed up by breaking things off, and started an affair. She dumped her boyfriend, and Peter claimed he wanted to tell me. But by the time he mustered up the courage, I was already pregnant. The longer he postponed telling me, the more difficult it became. With time, Mandy started feeling attached to our daughter, so it got complicated for him. He let it continue that way for 3 years until he realized what he was doing was messed up. He needed to clean up his act or else live a lie for the rest of his life. So he told me, and the divorce happened. He gave up custody of his daughter because he wanted to devote all his time to being a good husband to Mandy. Unfortunately, over time they realized Mandy still wanted a family, but she was too old to conceive without facing health complications during pregnancy. They decided that instead of trying for a baby of their own, they'd ask me to co-parent Peter's child. That's why he visited me that day. But when I refused to be intimidated into handing over my daughter, he tried a less threatening, more manipulative approach, which didn't work either. So his last option was to tell me the truth and hope I'd understand. He said Mandy already felt like a mother to our daughter during the times it was just the 3 of them at home. She wanted a chance to live that life again. They pleaded with me to let them have the family they'd always wanted, just for Mandy's sake. I have to hand it to them. It takes a lot of nerve to ask this after what they did. They lied and cheated for 3 years, including when I was pregnant. Yet they expected me to be kind and let them build a relationship with a child they discarded less than a year ago. They could have adopted or chosen surrogacy, but instead they tried to intimidate me into giving up my daughter. This is my daughter we're talking about, not something to pass around at their convenience. I knew they were crazy, but this is too much, even for them. I'm glad I spoke to my lawyer and forwarded that email. It's insane to think I'd agree to this under any circumstances. I can barely wrap my head around it. I'm relieved my daughter isn't old enough to understand this. If it were happening to someone else, I'd wonder what was going through their heads while planning this. It's absurd, but my priority now is keeping us safe. I don't trust them at all. After that email, they've proven they don't deserve trust. Update. My lawyer contacted Peter and told him the petition to terminate his parental rights was filed. He needs to sign it soon to avoid another custody battle, which benefits no one. Naturally, he didn't take it well. A couple of hours ago, Peter and Mandy showed up at my parents' place as I was leaving for work. I told them to stay off our property or I'd call the police. They moved back onto the street but were stubborn. Mandy said I was destroying my daughter's future by being egoistic, claiming I couldn't raise her alone. Her words infuriated me. I screamed at her because she had no right to lecture me on what my daughter needs or what family is. She ruined our happy family, and Peter went along with it. Now they're back, wanting to play happy family with my daughter. Even someone in an asylum would find that ridiculous. I can raise my daughter alone. I have a job and make enough money to give her a good life. As for family, I'm enough for her now. Maybe I'll marry again in the future, and she'll have a father. But for now, I'm all she needs. Once again, they cut off this same daughter for almost a year when they didn't want her. I feel like suddenly I'm not good enough of a mother for her. Both of these people are so stupid and delusional that it's painful to even think about. When I told them to leave because I was late for work, Mandy threw a tantrum right there on the street. She sat down and insisted she wouldn't move until I let her see my daughter. It was ridiculous. I asked Peter to move her, but he sat down beside her. If I hadn't been so upset, I might have laughed. Finally, my dad called the cops and they were removed forcefully. They kept arguing and threatened to protest, claiming I was depriving my daughter of a happy life on purpose. That word, deprive, triggered me. I'm doing my best for my daughter. When she grows up, she'll appreciate that I didn't let her psycho dad take over her upbringing. Who's to say she'd be safe with them? They could literally abduct her if they felt like it. They've proven they have no concern for anyone else. I let them know exactly what I thought of them, but they insisted I was keeping them apart out of a personal vendetta. After what they did to me, who wouldn't feel this way? The arguing went on until the police showed up and took them away. They showed no regret for their behavior and threatened to return, saying they wouldn't let me keep them away from their daughter. Feeling paranoid, I decided to stay home and file for a restraining order today. Their behavior scared and amused me at the same time. I'm moving to a new apartment soon because none of my old addresses feel safe anymore. Peter doesn't know where I live now, thanks to the restraining order. I have full custody of my daughter. These past few weeks have been tense. My ex-husband harassed me with texts from multiple numbers, and Mandy spread nasty rumors. They tried to bring me down, but it didn't work. I've told my friends not to mention them to me again, nor share anything about me with them. My daughter is okay, I'm okay, and that's all that matters. I'm all the family she needs.